Commission on Presidential Debates is made up of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans. And what do you get out of that? 3 Democrats plus 3 Republicans equals what? Cronyism, corruption. You know, they want to protect their own interests. They want to protect their establishment. They want to protect their bubble. They want to remain in that bubble.
I have a lot of disagreements with Gary Johnson. I do. But he should be in the debates. He's polling higher than Ross Perot did in 1992, and he was let in. And look, the people have to hear the voices of other candidates, of other parties, of other ways of seeing the world. Democrats and Republicans act like they hate each other very much, like they don't actually get along. But when push comes to shove, and when you get down to it at the microscopic level, Democrats and Republicans, they're pretty much best friends. They're amigos. Like, I rub your back, you rub mine. That's basically it. That's basically how Washington functions. And the Commission on Presidential Debates is nothing more but an arm of the Democratic and of the Republican parties.
On presidential debates, please leave a message.
Hi, I am a frustrated progressive that is not happy or satisfied with their choices this year. You must include Jill Stein and Gary Johnson on that debate stage, as both have the necessary ballot access to theoretically win the presidency. The polling threshold of 15% is way too high and it's undemocratic. Make the right choice. I urge you to do what I just did. I want you to bombard the Commission on Presidential Debates with phone calls and emails, and as a matter of fact, I will write an email later today. Thank you.
You know, she has been on both sides of every issue at one point. You know, okay, I support the TPP. I've negotiated it like for several years, and I call it the gold standard, but you know what? Move on from that. I think it's detrimental to society. Like, which is it, Hillary? Which is it? And she supports fracking, of course. That's not progressive at all. She supports, continuing the Obama foreign policy, the Obama-Bush foreign policy. Even though Obama ran on peace, on ending wars, there have been 7 interventions during his time as president, so that is not progressive in the least sense. So the fact that Hillary is not progressive, the fact that Hillary is a corporate shill and a cronyist puppet, I just could not support her. What this shows you is that the establishment is insecure. Hillary Clinton wouldn't, if Jill Stein and Gary Johnson had been invited to the debate, I think Hillary Clinton would fall apart. As with Donald Trump. They're insecure people. Power is their end. It's not their means. And if, so they just want power. Anything that stands in their way of power is something that they have to eliminate, is a threat they have to eliminate. They see Gary Johnson and Jill Stein and the other third-party candidates as a threat. They see it as a roadblock standing in the way between them and what they feel they rightfully are entitled to, which is power. Hillary Clinton feels so damn entitled to be president of the United States. I know that for a fact. So I turned to the Green Party, at first as an alternative, but when I began to see that the Green Party does not take lobbyist money, corporate money, Wall Street money, big bank money, and that the Democrats and Republicans were just beyond saving, and I mean beyond saving, they will never change because every attempt to elect a progressive Democrat or to put a progressive Democrat on the Democratic ticket, has failed. I just thought, you know what, the Green Party is no longer like an alternative. It's no longer Plan B. The Green Party is now the imperative. So Plan A. We have to do our absolute best to elect as many Greens as possible into local offices, into state offices, and eventually national offices, federal offices.
Now, Bernie Sanders, I believed in him. I supported him. I went to one of his rallies in Austin. There were about 10,000 people. It was an experience I will never forget. But at the same time, I feel let down. I feel so let down. Like, Hillary wins the nomination. She cheats him out of the nomination. And he goes, well, she is the best candidate in this race because she will defeat Donald Trump. I'm like, stop. Look, if every progressive, if every former Bernie Sanders supporter, if every worker that needs a raise, if every student that is battling, crippling student debt, if every person like that voted for Jill Stein, she would win in a landslide. But Bernie, stop playing with us. Stop playing games. Stop lying to yourself. Because you know the truth, Bernie. You know what I know, and I know that you know that this system is rigged. The Hillary Clinton is going to bring about just a minute amount of change. So Bernie, why not turn green? Why not? I don't know if sold out is the perfect term to use here, but I would say that Bernie has bowed before the establishment. He has. He just doesn't understand that so many voters out there that supported him cannot possibly turn to Hillary Clinton. If we're true progressives, then we oppose TPP, and we all know Hillary does not. If we are true progressives, we oppose fracking, which we all know Hillary supports. If we're true progressives, we have always been in support of same-sex marriage, which Hillary has only supported since 2013. There are so many issues on which we can attack Hillary Clinton on. Not just her policy positions, but her actual corruption. Look at the Clinton Foundation. Look at, the email scandal. If it had been anyone else, they would have been charged, convicted, and imprisoned in record time. But Hillary is immune to the law. Bill and Hillary Clinton and the Clintons as a whole, they are something else. Like, they're a special dynasty that has special rights, special privileges. They are above the law.
Obama has also let us down in many respects. Obamacare is actually a right-wing plan pushed by Nixon, pushed by Romney, actually pushed by the Republican establishment. But when Obama does it, they're like, okay, we don't like you personally, Barack. So even if you support our ideas, we're gonna block those, which is pretty childish and pretty stupid. So Obamacare is an individual mandate plan, meaning that you have to pay out of pocket still. There is no public option. And actually, the Democrats had a supermajority in the first 2 years of Obama's presidency. Of his first term, the first 2 years. So it's interesting. They had the votes. For single payer, but they caved. Public option I could have accepted, but they also caved on that. And how many votes did Obamacare, a right-wing plan, end up getting? Zero. None. Nada. None. So, if Obamacare, a right-wing plan, gets 0 Republican votes, but you had the votes to, pass single payer, to pass the public option in Obamacare, then why didn't you do it?
Look, I believed in you, Bernie. I trusted you. I admired you, and as a matter of fact, I still do. You are a progressive lion. Like, you are a progressive hero. Okay? But at the same time, we gotta be critical of you, Bernie. We gotta be critical of you. Not because we hate you, but because we love you. That's why. Bernie, I think it's time to transcend the barriers of the Democratic Party. It's time to move past the imperialism, the colonialism, the materialism, and the militarism of the Democratic Party and the two-party system.
More drone strikes, more air attacks, more bombings actually make it worse, not better. Because when you mix fundamentalist religion with losing a family, losing a friend, losing a loved one, having churches bombed, weddings bombed, clinics bombed, residential areas bombed, and like 90% of the time we get the wrong people. Okay, 90% of the time we get the wrong people. You kind of understand where terrorism comes from. Obviously, you don't agree with it. Obviously, you think terrorism needs to be squashed, but in a whole different manner. But you understand where they're coming from. I understand where they're coming from.
Evan McMullin, who was a Republican insider and policy director, who is now running as an independent, focusing on states like Utah and so forth. Now, what is he trying to do? He doesn't expect to actually win. That's impossible. And he knows that too. What he's trying to do is either win a state or two, or if he cannot do that, and he absolutely cannot do that, because he doesn't have enough media attention, he doesn't have enough fundraising and so forth. But look, if he does not win a state or two, then he wants to just make it so that Hillary would win those states, not Trump, to hand the election over to Hillary. So Evan, stop. Stop. Just stop. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work, Evan. It's not gonna work. Johnson is on all 50 state ballots, while Jill, I believe, is on 45 as of now. So essentially, like 95% of voters will see, Jill Stein on the ballot. All voters will see Gary Johnson on the ballot, but they've both been excluded. So look, I could take this in two ways. I could do this, calmly, or I could get really angry. And believe me, I am angry. Now, of course, this does not mean that we're not going to see them in any debate in the future. It's just in this first debate, in this first presidential debate, and in the vice presidential debate. And that's pretty sad, as a matter of fact. The Democrats are the new Republicans, and the Republicans, they are just outright fascists at this point.
So the ACLU, Human Rights Watch, and Amnesty International, which are highly respected human rights groups, have openly called for pardoning Edward Snowden and other whistleblowers. Now, I must commend this action. I must commend the words that are being spoken, but we have to go farther than words. We have to actually pressure Congress to, to recognize the actions these whistleblowers have done on behalf of the American people. And we have to pressure the President of the United States to actually pardon them. So we can't just say, hey, please do it. We have to say, do it now. We have to launch a real campaign.
Yet another sad story from the No DAPL protest. So Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! Has been charged with criminal trespassing in connection to covering the protest about the Dakota Access Pipeline. I just don't get it.
What we have to offer is it's sort of this idea of it's like the possibility of an idea realized. We see capitalism as inherently racist, sexist, oppressive, exploitative, obviously terrible for the climate. And we're not seeking to reform that system. What we are seeking is revolutionary change. And to do that, that's going to require an effort that starts at the community level and works its way up. So what we're asking, I think, is for folks to get involved at the local level, to build relationships locally, relationships that extend far beyond the general election. And if there's anything that Angela and I and the rest of the folks at the campaign can help to do in that regard, that's why we're here.
Like, you're going to arrest or have a warrant for arrest out for someone who is just covering a very important story, who is engaging and exercising her First Amendment right of a free press. She is protesting, or just covering a protest, against something that violates treaties, that supports colonialism, that supports materialism, and also environmental damage. I just don't get it, man. I really don't.
Because look, these whistleblowers, they're not traitors. They're heroes. All that Edward Snowden did was say, hey, look, I've worked at the NSA. I've seen what this government has done towards its citizens, which is collecting metadata from large corporations and saying, okay, we don't need a warrant for each individual person. We just need to say, hey, we want all the information from all your consumers and all the devices that all those consumers have. All right? So the government could go to Microsoft and say, okay, all the phones you make, all the consumers you have, we want all the information right now, okay? They went to Apple and they're like, okay, we're just going to spy on all of your customers, okay? And these corporations are like, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, okay.
We gotta go all renewables, man. We gotta go all renewables. Solar, wind, hydro. That's how we power the future. That's how we power tomorrow, okay?
So, what Edward Snowden did was say this is wrong. And, as a matter of fact, it's not just Edward Snowden. It's people like Chelsea Manning as well. All she did was say, look, here's what we're doing to civilians in the Middle East. Here is how we, engage in warfare in other countries. These are the war crimes we've committed. And then the government's like, how dare you criticize us? How dare you? We are going to stick you in prison and be absolutely ruthless and merciless to you. It's time that we move on from this duopoly of fear. And as Jill would say, we have to reject the lesser evil and fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because they actually do. In terms of climate change, in terms of weapons on our street, in terms of poverty, in terms of healthcare, our lives depend on these issues. Our lives depend on whether we have healthcare or not. Our lives depend on whether we, have to worry about gun violence on our streets, or whether we have to worry about police violence against us just because of our skin color.
It's gonna be the worst debate of all freaking history. I'm not exactly looking forward to it, but I'm gonna watch it anyway. I mean, good journalists cover even horse shit they don't enjoy.
So here's what I say to Barack Obama. Look, do this, do this, pursue it. Pursue this. I know the thought has crossed your mind at least once, Barack. I know it has. Pardon Edward Snowden. Pardon Chelsea Manning. Pardon all of the whistleblowers that have only stood up for the rights of people all around the world. I mean, because the government commits atrocities not just towards Americans, but towards Middle Easterners and towards many other peoples.
Democratic control of business, of the marketplace.
Gary Johnson and Jill Stein need to be in the debates. Period.